Decades ago, in the 1970s to be more precise, a child was found inside a box. No one knew who he was, why he was there, or what his story was. However, the circumstances in which this boy was found have resurfaced one of the greatest mysteries in the United States. After all, who was that child? In a small cemetery in Philadelphia, there is a grave that for a long time was filled with stuffed animals that were thrown by the city's residents and by people who visited the place. Many people know that there is a child buried there, but no one knows his name. So much so that the tombstone reads, "America's unknown child." For many people, this tombstone is a reminder of how cruel humanity can be. America's unknown child. The story of this child begins back in 1957, when a young hunter went out to check the traps he had left in the forest and ended up finding a cardboard box with a child inside. At first, the young man even thought about calling the police, but fearing that he would be accused of murder, he decided to ignore the box and move on with his life. A few days later, a college student was driving down a road when he saw a rabbit running. Knowing that the place was full of traps, the student tried to save the animal and then ended up finding the box. The student was also afraid that he would be accused of the child's murder, but he decided to call the police anyway. Inside the box, there was a naked boy, wrapped in a plaid blanket. He weighed about 14 kilos and was just over a meter tall. According to experts at the time, the child was between 3 and 7 years old, and his measurements did not match his age. The little boy was malnourished and seemed to have suffered a lot before he died. Despite his terrible appearance, the little boy's nails had been carefully cut, and his hair also showed that he had been to a skilled barber. There were also some surgical scars, mainly on the ankle, groin and chin. His eyes showed signs that the child had been receiving treatment for some chronic condition. A dark substance was found, so there was a mysterious crime, and a lot to be investigated. First, the police tried to discover the boy's identity, because what family wouldn't miss a child? For the police, all they had to do was look a little and they would find a family that was desperate to find the child. After checking the list of missing children, the police found no description of the body's characteristics. They also looked for fingerprints. And once again, they found no clue that could help solve the mystery. About 400,000 pamphlets were also distributed throughout Philadelphia and throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And even so, they found no clue as to who the child was. With nothing else to do, the police photographed the child's body with various clothes on, hoping that someone, anyone, would remember him. But once again, without success. There was one clue that could help the police: the box where the child's body was found. It was a crib box, so perhaps it would be easy to go to the manufacturer and try to find out who had bought the crib. And again, to no avail. In those days, people used to buy things with cash, so it was hard to identify who could have bought a crib and supposedly killed the child. And once again, the authorities were at a loss for clues. A forensic facial reconstruction was done, and a drawing of a happy little boy was included on every poster. Flyers were posted at police stations, post offices, and even included in envelopes with bills. The crime scene was also searched over and over again. But apart from the children's clothes, which led nowhere, there were no clues. Then a witness came forward, who supposedly knew something. This person said that the day before the body was found, she had seen a woman and a child on the road, and asked if they needed help. The woman simply said she didn't, and the witness went on his way. The police then began investigating families in the area, and some rumors led to a woman who had 9 children, and that once she had thrown the body of one of them in the trash after she died of natural causes, but they found no evidence that the child was her daughter. In 1960, an employee at the coroner's office was informed by a medium that the boy in the box came from a local foster home. The police went to investigate once again, and they found blankets similar to the one he was wrapped in, hanging on the clothesline. In addition to a crib that had been sold in the same box in which the boy had been found, many said that the child was the daughter of one of the daughters of the owner of the foster home, and that he had died accidentally. Despite the insistence on these facts, no connection was made between the boy in the box and the foster home. The evidence was scant. No one had any clues, and as the years went by, the crime was forgotten by the authorities and the people. It was forgotten by everyone, except for Detective Remington Bristol. The detective dedicated a good deal of his money and time to solving the crime. For Bristol, it was a fact that the boy had come from an orphanage. But there was no link that would lead him to the killer. He investigated until 1993, when he died. Years later, the child's body was exhumed, and experts collected his DNA for testing. And even with all the technology at the time, the test led nowhere. And if you think that this case has simply come to an end, you are mistaken. Decades after the crime, in 2002, a woman, who did not reveal her identity, went to the police, claiming that the boy had been bought by his mother, who had been abused for several years in her home. I know this story is heavy, but according to the woman, the child was used as a sex slave by her parents. She also claimed that after the boy had vomited beans at dinner, her mother had hit his head against the wall so hard that the boy had passed out. She tried to give him a bath to try to wake him up, but he died in her arms. The police initially believed what the woman said, since there was a dark substance in the boy.